والصلاة والسلام على المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, we'll just inshallah ta'ala go every day with a juz, inshallah, in the order of the ajza of the Quran. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us benefit in this month with the fasting and the Quran and reciting and pondering over its meanings. It's the month of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran unto the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in the month of Ramadan. And that's why it's so virtuous. And then it also established one of the pillars of Islam, which is the pillar of fasting. And as we said yesterday, as-siyam and Quran, both fasting and the Quran, they are always together. And that's why they are mentioned together in one hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that they both yashfa'an, intercede for the person in the day of judgment. The fasting will say, I deprived them or prevented him from eating and drinking. And the Quran would say, I prevented him from sleep. A person can choose to eat, and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best who's fasting and who's not. Fasting is not an action that you are seen doing. It's something that we're abstaining from. So nobody can tell whatsoever that you are fasting or not. So that's why it has so much sincerity in it. The truthfulness of one's iman shows when the person stays away from what breaks the fast only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also a person can choose to sleep, especially when the night is very short. But the person would choose to stay awake and to pray the night prayer, following the way of the Prophet ﷺ, listening to the Quran and trying to ponder over its meaning. And if any one of us do not understand the Quran, should a person say then I should stay home and not come to the Salah? Definitely not. The Quran is a cure by itself. So for the person to listen to the Quran, even if he doesn't understand anything, this is a great blessing. And it affects the heart, and it cures to the diseases of the heart. And definitely we should take the other step, the further step, in which we try our best to ponder over the verses of the Quran. The third juz starts in Surah Al-Baqarah, like 3 ruba and a little bit. In it, almost half of it in Surah Al-Baqarah, and the other half in Surah Al-Imran. From the ربع تلك الرسل فضلنا بعضهم على بعض. And in that ربع, the beginning of the third juz is Ayatul Kursi. And Ayatul Kursi is the most virtuous ayah in the Quran. And if we talk about Ayatul Kursi, that needs sessions, right? So this is something that we do every day many times, after each salah, before we go to sleep. And it's protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, protection by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the shaitan and so on, as the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And it's the most virtuous because it's all about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His names and attributes subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the foundation of this deen. And also towards the end of the surah, actually the last 2 verses of the surah, 2 virtuous ayat. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the ayatin, the 2 ayat at the end of Surah Al-Baqarah, whoever recites them in the night, kafatan, which means it will be sufficient for that person. It was said sufficient for the night prayer, sufficient with matters of protection. And as one of the ulama, they say, leave it as it is, sufficient for all means, and the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so vast. And this is in the last 2 verses of the Quran, and it has significance in it. And briefly, when the last 3 verses, or the 3rd verse at the end, from the surah, was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, which in it, وَإِن تُبْدُوا مَا فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَوْ تُخْفُوهُ يُحَاسِبُكُمْ بِهِ اللَّهُ. When this ayah was revealed, which means literally that if you conceal anything or you make it apparent, you will be held accountable for it by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That means your wins, you were responsible for your wins. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they came to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and they said, جَثَوْا عَلَى الرُّكَبِ, as a narration, Sahih Muslim, they fell on their knees. And they said, O Prophet of Allah, we have been ordered to do things that is in our capacity. Salah, Siyam, Jihad fi sabilillah, fasting, making the Salah, fighting for the sake of Allah. This is in our capacity. But this ayah is not in our capacity. That a person, his wins that comes, that he has no responsibility of it, he will become or be held accountable for it. So the Prophet ﷺ told them, do you want to be among like the Bani Israel? They said, سَمِعْنَا وَعَصَيْنَا. سَمِعْنَا, we listen and we disobey. Say, سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا غُفْرَانَكَ رَبَّنَا وَإِلَيْكَ الْمَصِيرُ. So the narrator of the hadith, he said, فَلَمَّا ذَلَّتْ بِهَا أَلْسِنَتُهُمْ, when their tongues humbled itself by saying it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the last 2 verses of the Quran, leaving this ummah from the winds that comes in. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت, till the end of the surah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieved this ummah and from anything that is over its capacity. And this is by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show that this ummah is a blessed ummah, and also shows the virtues of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. If they would have not done this, how would be the outcome? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for them to be the mean of the blessings to come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made his the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a mean for rahmah, for mercy for this ummah, when they submitted themselves and they listened and they obeyed and they followed the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the same way we should follow the way in which we follow the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this level of submission with good expectations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surah Al-Baqarah was a surah, as it's mentioned in the beginning of it, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, this book has no doubt. So as if the whole surah is about the Quran, that the Quran is guidance to all mankind, and with all the different categories of the human beings and the story of Adam alayhi salam and Bani Israel and so on. But it's all to call the people to follow the Quran, because this is the guidance to all mankind. Then after that, Surah Al-Imran is basically the major maqsad of the surah, right, is the Tawheed, is the oneness of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the message of the Quran. And a big portion of Surah Al-Imran, which is in the beginning, but not from the very beginning, but it talks about when the wafd of Najran, when the delegation of Najran, they were Christians, and they came to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ debated with them. Over 80 verses of Surah Al-Imran was revealed because of this, refuting the cause of associating partners with Allah and calling them to follow the Prophet ﷺ and to embrace the Tawheed. And ayat that are amazing if a person ponder over these ayat, how the Tawheed, the oneness of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is established with no doubt whatsoever. And the more the person ponder over it, the more he would see the clarity in it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the Quran so clear, and it's mentioned in the beginning of Surah Al-Imran, هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب منه آيات محكمات هن أم الكتاب وأخر متشابهات. That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that brought down the Quran unto you, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In the Quran, ayatun muhkamat, clear verses from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the foundation of the book. وَأُخَرُ مُتَشَابِهَات, and some verses mutashabihat. Mutashabihat means that can have similar meanings, that one ayah can mean more than one thing. So what happens then? The ayat of the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the foundation of this religion, definitely there are muhkamat, there are clear verses. But the ayat that might mean more than one thing, right? The way the believers should understand it, they should always understand it in the light of the clear ayat of the Quran. So whenever ayah, or so, for example, if somebody understood from the ayah about forbidding al-khamr, or drinking wine and intoxications, whoever understands from this ayah that the ayah says fajtanibu, stay away from it. But it didn't say don't sell it, it didn't say don't drink it. It says stay away from it. Right? This is definitely a distorted understanding. But if someone would come up with such a distorted understanding that the word even does not mean that, the word even is stronger than drinking or buying or selling, the word means stay away from it. That if it's in a place, you stay away from it. That means you don't do anything with it. You don't buy it and sell it, you don't drink it, you don't carry it, you don't squeeze it, you don't do anything to it. Right? But if a person, the shaitan comes and whispers to him this is how the ayah understood in the light of the rest of the ayat and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and how they applied it when these ayat were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. So the people that have zayg in their hearts, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned them, they have deviation in their hearts. They follow the mutashabih. They follow the ayat that can mean more than one thing, right? As a way of to show their corruption in their hearts. But the believers, they submit themselves and they follow what is muhkam, what is clear from the ayat of the Quran. And if we go back again to Surah Al-Baqarah towards the end, we skipped some things, of course, with the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the believers to give. Many verses talks about charity and the words of those who give charity, and whoever gives in charity, it's multiplied to 700 times and so on. It's all to encourage the believers, and it's not just to encourage them, this is for real. The promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the truth. So one ayah after the other. And with the charity, there are certain etiquettes to be observed. Some people think that once they give, that's it. The reward is given, the deed is finished, and they would see it in the day of judgment for sure. No, a person can do a good deed and then ruin it, and then destroy it completely. Like what? As it's mentioned in the ayat, قول معروف ومغفرة خير من صدقة يتبعها أذى والله غني حليم, which means good speech, right? And sadaqah is better than you hurt someone with your charity, right? And this is also has been forbidden in the Quran, al-mann wal-adha, that when people would give charity for the sake of Allah to someone that is poor, and then later, it doesn't have to be immediately, maybe after 10 years, you see that poor person and he had backbited you, for example, did something bad, haram, and you would remind them of your charity. You tell him, you were doing this to me when I'm the one that gave this to you and I helped you when you were in need. Then the reward was this. The reward was for this. It wasn't for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So the men, whether it's justified or not, it's forbidden whatsoever. When a person gives for the sake of Allah, he gives for the sake of Allah. He's not waiting for any reward from any human being whatsoever, even if it's a nice word. And that's why even some of the ulama, they said, and we should be careful with that, if you give someone a charity or help someone a great deal, don't even tell him, just make dua for me. It's a common thing, right? People, when they do things to each other, they say the other side will tell him, Jazakum khair, what can I do for you? You just did a great thing for me. He said, just make dua for me. Don't even say that. So that you don't seek nothing from him. You seek only the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not seeking anything from any of the human beings. And then the ayat to show that the Surah Al-Baqarah, we said yesterday, that this is such an important surah, and it's the longest surah in the Quran, and أخذها barakah, as the Prophet ﷺ said, to take it, its barakah, its blessings, and to leave it, its regret. And Surah Al-Baqarah and Al-Imran, they come in the day of judgment, تحجان عن صاحبهما, defend the owner of Al-Baqarah and Al-Imran, the one that used to recite it, memorize it, act according to it. The two surah will come and defend that person, intercede for him in the day of judgment. And they would come in the form, as the Prophet ﷺ said, كأنهما غمامتان أو غايتان. That means they come as if there are two clouds. They come physically in the day of judgment like this, defending the person, and you can see the honor of that person that is in the day of judgment with Surah Al-Baqarah and Al-Imran coming to defend him. But would Baqarah and Al-Imran defend the person if he's just reciting it? No, he also has to act according to it. That's why if the person is reciting the surah from the beginning, building his iman, seeing the truth from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with these magnificent verses in the Quran, then towards the end comes the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the practicality of matters of an iman, to stay away from riba, from usury. That many had been afflicted with this major sin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade us clearly with regards to riba in the Quran. And as Imam Ahmad and others, when Imam Ahmad was asked about what is the most severe ayah in the Quran that has severe punishment in it, he said to the questioner, give me 3 days, so that he can read the whole Quran and ponder over what is the most severe punishment. He came back to him and he said, I did not see any more severe in punishment in an ayah other than the ayah of al-riba. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وذروا ما بقي من الربا إن كنتم مؤمنين فإن لم تفعلوا فأذنوا بحرب من الله ورسوله. That you will believe, fear Allah, and stay away from riba if you are believers. And if you don't, then wait for a war from Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who can sustain a war with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Does the war from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this dunya means that the person his house will be destroyed, lightning comes from the skies? This is not necessarily the war from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The worst thing, and this is how we need to change our perception of things. What is the worst thing that can happen to a person in this life? Is for the person to enter the hellfire. So when the person's heart is sealed, person is not able to see what is right and what is wrong, person to continue to be misguided, to live a life of sin and deviation till the moment of death comes and he entered hellfire. This is the worst punishment. This is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the worst ways, or the most severe ways for a person to be punished when the hearts are sealed. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Anfal, يا أيها الذين آمنوا استجيبوا لله وللرسول إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم واعلموا أن الله يحول بين المرء وقلبه وأنه إليه تحشرون. That respond to the call from Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with submission, with obedience, and know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is between one's heart and himself. That means you want to do good but you can't. A person is deprived from being guided, and this is the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most just. It's one's action that can lead to this. فَلَمَّا زَاغُوا أَزَاغَ اللَّهُ قُلُوبَهُم. When they deviated, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deviated their hearts. So definitely when we're reciting these ayat, it's a time to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is one of the difficult things if a person is deep in these types of sins, but to put it in good expectations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to repent to Allah. And as we see in Surah Al-Baqarah and all the surahs, they're mixed always. Ayat of, as we heard yesterday, talaq and marriage and divorce, and within, in the midst of the ayat of the talaq, right? وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّكُمْ مُلَاقُوهُ. Fear Allah, be dutiful to Allah, and know that you will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the midst of the ayat, there is rulings of divorce and marriage and so on, because it's all the same message. Whether it's matters of belief, actions, halal and haram, it's all blend that gives the believers this is their way of life. Their whole entire life is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no separation with one state to the other. Masjid is not one mosque and outside in another mosque, and at work, in the school, in the streets, in the market. It's only one faith that is seeking the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, following the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And then, very briefly, as we started with the Surah Al-Imran, then the story of Maryam alayhi salam and her son Isa alayhi salam, and this story has been mentioned extensively in the beginning or towards the beginning of the, before the story started, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated in fact in the deen عند الله Islam, that the deen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-Islam. It's only one religion that has been conveyed to all the messengers of Allah, from Adam alayhi salam to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They're all brothers, came with the same message, and that is to submit oneself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, worshipping Him alone. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds the people of the book and everyone always to the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam. When everybody believes in Ibrahim alayhi salam, who was Ibrahim alayhi salam worshipping? He was worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. There was no invention of all of these religions. He was submitting himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And it's the same message to Musa and Isa and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then it started with the story of Isa alayhi salam from the very beginning, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose from His creation Adam and Nuh and Ali Ibrahim and Ali Imran ala al-alameen. And then the story comes in place, and at the end the true story of Isa alayhi salam. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, إِنَّ مَثَلَ عِيسَى عِنْدَ اللَّهِ كَمَثَلِ آدَمَ خَلَقَهُ مِنْ تُرَابٍ ثُمَّ قَالَ لَهُ كُنْ فَيَكُونُ. That the example or the parable of Isa alayhi salam is like Adam. Adam alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him from dust, and He said for him to be, and he was. So the same thing, the miraculous birth of Isa alayhi salam, it's nothing difficult on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He created Adam from nothing whatsoever. So then comes into the situation of the people of the book, and some of them are righteous and some of them are not righteous, and some of them that you can entrust them with a huge amount of wealth, they will be very entrusted to this and they will fulfill their obligations. And others, if you entrust them with a dinar, right, like a dollar, they won't fulfill their trust, right? And this is true also for this ummah. As the Prophet ﷺ said, لَتَتَّبِعُنَّ سَنَنَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ حَذْوَ الْقَدْلَةِ بِالْقَدْلَةِ. That you would follow the same footsteps of the nations before. The Jews and the Christians exactly the same way. Some will be like this and some will be like that. So that means a person, when he's reciting these verses, he should not say, well, this is them. No, he should relate to himself also, that he would see what qualities they have been praised in the Quran about. Then he would try to be among those who have these qualities. And what qualities they have been condemned in the Quran, to stay away from it. And this is the benefit of the Quran. The Quran was not revealed to the people of Musa alayhi salam at the time of Musa, because they're gone. The Quran was not revealed to the people of Nuh or to the people of Isa alayhi salam. The Quran even today is not for those who passed away yesterday. Right? The Quran today, for those who are alive, is for those who are alive. Right? So this is what even Umar radiallahu anhu, he said in a statement, that the people had left, and we are the ones that are meant by the Quran. They are left, they are held accountable for their actions, but the ones that are held accountable for affected by the Quran, this is the time for us to relate to the Quran, to read the Quran, the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like a messenger living among us. And the Quran is like this, and Surah Al-Baqarah is like this, Surah Al-Imran is like this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَبَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ قَرْيَةٍ نَذِيرًا فَلَا تُطِعِ الْكَافِرِينَ وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ جِهَادًا كَبِيرًا. In Quran, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, He would have sent in every village a messenger. Don't you sometimes when you're alone you wish that this was the case? You think that some people the message did reach them, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying if He will, He would have sent in every village a messenger. But then the next ayah says, do not obey the disbelievers, وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ, and struggle with them with it. What is it here? Is the Quran. So as the ulama they say in the tafsir, the Quran now is in the place or the position of a messenger in every village. Right? This is the message. This is the thing between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ is the final messenger of Allah to all mankind. He is their messenger. They're supposed to follow his message, and his message has been saved for us. The Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, with its miraculous linguistics and so on, the Quran and the meanings of it and so on. So it's important for us as Muslims to hold fast to the Quran and to learn it and to study it and to convey the message of the Quran. Don't convey your own intellectual meanings. Right? Sometimes people in da'wah, they think that they can be or outsmart the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, humble ourselves to the wahy. See the way of the Quran in calling the people to the deen and use that. Because it talks to the fitrah, to the innate of the human beings that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So the way of the Quran, the ways of convincing means of the Quran, maybe this is another subject, to learn how to give da'wah from the ways of the Quran, from the ways of the Quran and calling the people, different people, whether they are like the mushrikeen of Quraysh or the people of the book or whatever backgrounds they have, you would find ways in the Quran to call these people to the truth in ways that would clear all means of doubt by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our deeds and to make it easy for us to ponder over the Quran. Again, as I said, we can never give the rights to the Quran in a few minutes. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this can be a benefit, encourage us to read and to ponder and to act and to live our life according to the book of Allah and the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.